Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 207, the inspiring and motivating Josh LaJaunie.
We work hard throughout the year to bring you high quality information and amazing guests, and we are taking a little break throughout the summer. But as you know, since you're listening to this podcast right now, it does not mean that we're stopping. What we've done is we've made a collection of our favorite guests and some of the most popular shows, and we're bringing them back to you for 3 reasons.
So basically, some of you have been with us since the beginning, and now that we have over 200 episodes, we thought that not everybody has been subscribed since the beginning, and we don't want you to miss some of these really important shows like the one that we have for you today. So every time we re-listen to our podcasts or our webinars or our lectures, we take away something new or we realize something different.
And you might know somebody who can benefit from this show, and maybe you didn't think about it the first time. So as you're re-listening to the show and getting some new revelations, just kind of think about who could really benefit from this information in the show, and who do you want to pass it on to, and please share it with them.
So in this episode, we talked to our friend Josh LaJaunie, who was on our show, episode 105, and recently he was on the cover of Runner's World magazine. He's a great guy. He's so inspirational. He's turned his life around, and he continues to inspire so many other people to do the same.
We talked about his Bam Bam, we talked about running, we talked about motivation, and so many more ideas during this podcast. And what I really took from recording the podcast was get out there and run. And I had a really awesome run the next day after recording this podcast. The new cookbook is finally done. We created a cookbook that's perfect for any home, whether you're one person or a large family. Our beef or tofu with cookbooks is that you always want to make all the recipes in the book, and then you're left over with 1,000 ingredients and you don't know what to do with them. And also, recipes can be really, really difficult and take over an hour just for the main course. But this book is different. It's divided by ingredients, which allows you to A, batch cook and save time. Many recipes are made in under just 15 minutes. And B, plan your weekly meals based on ingredients, which saves you money. So head over to planttrainers.com or click on the link in the show notes and get your easy recipes for busy parents cookbook today. It's so simple, even your kids can make the meals. And did I mention that some of the recipes can be made in under 15 minutes?
And now for a moment of gratitude.
Since it's the summer and we want to always be true in our moment of gratitude, and we're not here to give one right now, we are just going to ask you to take a moment and find something that you're grateful for in your own life. All right, we are here with Josh LaJaunie. Josh, thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Oh, pleasure, my pleasure.
And do you have anything that you'd like to share with us as a moment of gratitude today?
Well, actually, today I'm thankful for actually, speaking with you guys, which is, is something that would have never happened if it hadn't have been for my mentor and first podcast interviewer, Rich Roll. So when you ask me to share a moment of gratitude, that being grateful for what he's done in my life is something that just sort of rises right straight to the top of my consciousness in a response. Mm-hmm.
I think Rich is a mentor for a lot of us, and
yeah.
I know that you and us, we met up for the first time at Health Fest in Texas a couple of months ago, and Rich has been instrumental in our lives, I think, as well over the last couple of years. We weren't on his show yet, but we get a lot from him, and we met him in person. We hung out with him for a while, and we've had conversation with him. He's been on our show, and I wrote a blog a while back about the power of positive, and he was instrumental in part of my transformation as well. So a lot of gratitude to Rich and everything that he does, for sure.
Yeah, he's quite a human.
Yeah.
So you're living down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And we've told our viewers a little bit about you before we started recording this, but we want you to tell us a little bit about the culture down there and how the culture kind of sets you up for the future in terms of health and weight, and a little bit about your story and how culture plays a part in that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, growing up on the bayou, we do, you got to think about what seeded this culture down here, the humans that seeded this culture and seeded our way of existing, which is survivors who were basically, exiled from their homeland, which is where you guys are from, really. And so we go from, Nova Scotia, Canada to South Louisiana, massive difference, right? So we have to invent all of these ways of eating and these ways of surviving that, extrapolated forward to today are those things are celebrated, like eating crawfish and, making do with any animal that moves. We can make anything taste good. We make roux and stews of anything that moves, I like to say. And so that is us in a nutshell, is we are survivors. We go from, one extreme as a norm to another extreme as a new forced norm. And we make that our home, and we're proud of it and we love it. And to the Cajuns, the Coonasses today identify with food as like the biggest marker, I would say. That's the most outward way to display your Cajunness is through your, not only your food choices, but your proficiency in creating those food items and recipes and stuff, So food is a real big integral part of the Cajun culture. And so, it's always a celebration. Food's always used as a celebration, so we're doing something on the weekends regularly. The gym, as far as cities go in Louisiana, is New Orleans, right? So that's the gym in the crown of Louisiana is New Orleans, and she's a beautiful place. And, if New Orleans is known for anything, it's the food. That's what we do. So our hobby, our pastime, and our sport in a lot of ways is not only creating extremely calorically dense, very, very intensively dopamine creating. I don't know if I'm using that properly, but you know what I'm getting at. Like these foods, the more dopamine you can create in a given bite, the better. And that's what we do. Butters and creams and sauces and gravies and fried stuff and desserts and, and then you move on to the alcohol and the cocktails. I mean, we're a city of cocktails. That's what we do. And so it's a lifestyle. It's an identity. It's integral in the culture. And, as a person who's born and raised here, obviously not everybody's going to go as extreme as I did, but I truly bought into and really, I tried to exemplify that culture in many ways. And what it led to for me in my life in particular was, to being a very, very large guy, over 400 pounds at one time, and very unhealthy, not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally. And I kept those last two things kind of secret and private. That was for me to wrestle with and for me to deal with. And, but the physical part, that was out in the wide open, and you can't really do much about hiding the fact that you can't fit in a booth, or you need an extra seatbelt on the airplane, or whatever.
And that was like your inheritance a little bit, right? Because
Sure.
your papa, what do you call him?
I call my grandfather Bam Bam. Yeah.
Your Bam Bam. So, I mean, you were the oldest of your family, so you were to take the place of your Bam Bam.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's part of the identity. And you see, my Bam Bam's not really from South Louisiana. He's from Mississippi. And so, but I am a Coonass. My dad is from here. I'm a LaJaunie. My dad's family is from the swamps in a place called Chacahula. And my grandfather was really sort of what they call a redneck down here in Cajun land, trying to fit in a lot of ways. And what happened, and when I look back at things, my grandfather was the one who really was pushing the, how to ball crawfish the best way, how to make gumbo the best way, the best recipe for jambalaya, the best crawfish pie recipe, how to make. He used to have this dish that there's a restaurant here called Mosca's. There's a shrimp dish, and that was his specialty, was to make shrimp mosca. And it was away from my grandfather, who's a Mississippian native born, to fit in. And that was a surefire way to fit into the people down here, to this culture down here. And my grandfather was really, really good at it. He was really, really good at not only the food, but the mindset of the people down here, how to have a drink and tell a good story and hold court in a room. And it was really something to watch. And I really took my grandfather. He was my hero. He is my hero. He's still around. He's still here. He's my hero. He's our patriarch. And so, yeah, I was the oldest. My grandfather was always a 350 plus pound man my whole life. And he was the one who I sat in the kitchen with, and we would watch, you don't know anything about it, but you don't know these people's names, but Chef Paul Prudhomme or Justin Wilson, or on the local morning news, Frank Davis. We were always collecting recipes and making recipes, and on the weekends it would be me sitting around with my Bam Bam, fixing his whiskey drinks, stirring a roux. And that's what we did. So it wasn't just food. It was a whole, like, very visceral, like, emotional, familial tie bond thing, It was deep, very deep,
And so as a young boy, were you a big boy always?
Well, I was a beanpole. I was a slim fella in kindergarten, right? But when I got up into grade school, middle school age, I was starting to flesh out, let's say. And I was big, but I was proportionately big. But that's when I started playing football. And the more I played football, the bigger I got, and the bigger I got, the more recognized I got on the football field, and the bigness became an asset as a football player. Yeah. So, but I wasn't I don't think, just looking at my life, I don't think I was an inherently like a chubby kid or anything like that. Like my brother wrestled with that our whole lives. My brother did a lot. My brother was always the traditional quote unquote fat kid. And I think, that's hard to wrestle with. But yeah, I was never like a big child. I got really heavy as the years came on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when you start playing football and they notice that your size is important to the
Right.
sport, and
Mm-hmm.
they start pushing that, you start thinking, oh, I'm doing good things because I'm getting recognized for my size.
Yeah.
So I need to continue what I'm doing. And
Exactly. It's not like I was being forced to eat, cheeseburgers and pizzas, the things that were making me big. It wasn't like it was a very hard choice to make. I mean, it's easy to get big and heavy. And so, and you add on to the fact that, hey, I'm getting recognized in a positive way for it. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling little thing that happens there. Yeah.
So now at what point, I mean, you were at your biggest, I think it was 400 pounds. So
Right, sure.
at what point in this whole process did something click and you said, oh, this is not working for me anymore, I need to make a change?
Well, before that point, I had lost and then regained weight probably 3 or 4 times in my life. I've always, even during my football years, I've always been self-conscious of my body so even through the football years, I always felt like a fat person, and I just didn't like it. And I would always try to lose weight, and then I would put weight on, and then I would try to lose weight. And then when football was finally over, I lost a big portion of weight, almost 100 pounds, probably 85, 90 pounds at one point, which is when I met my wife. And then I put it all back on before I married my wife. So it's been a crazy roller coaster ride. But this last time, the thing that really got me, and I think the difference maker for me in this go around, was the fact that I had, at the encouragement of my wife, I had gone back to school, right? I had become a reader. As silly as that may sound, like, I had become a reader, and I started to absorb some facts and really understand that just because I assumed something doesn't mean that it's correct. And so I became more pragmatic in my approach. But the thing that spurred it was, the whole reason I'm bringing that up is because I was in school, And my senior year, I was worried about having to go and do these business presentations where I knew I was going to have to be in a suit, and I knew I was going to have to wear a tie and tuck in my shirt and all of that stuff. And I was really embarrassed. Simply put, I was embarrassed about it. And I knew I had this was spring of 2011. I knew I had until the fall of 2011 to do something about it. And that was where it all sort of changed. I think those things, combined with the fact that I had my idea of what impossible was, sort of shook in some major ways. One, I was getting my degree. Holy crap. Didn't ever really think I was really going to do that. I was a big, fat, has-been athlete jock guy. I wasn't a cerebral, go back to school, read books, get good grades, and finally earn your degree as a non-traditional student guy. That wasn't who I was in my mind, but here I was doing that. Then on top of that, I married my wife halfway through. So now not only am I like not in the friend zone like I always had been as a fat guy with all females, fall right into the friend zone and you make a chump out of yourself, trying to chase different girls. And you know how maybe you don't, but that's how the story goes. And so here I was, not only not in the friend zone with a very beautiful woman, but I was married to her. She decided she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. That another one that was impossible. And another third prong to that impossible sort of shaking that was going on was the Saints. It seems trivial to a lot of people, but the Saints won the Super Bowl in 2010. And it really, really shook me. I mean, we could go on for hours about why the Saints are so important to me. But they are. Let's just leave it at that. They are. And that is very important to me. And so I was like, my idea of what possible was and impossible was really kind of flipped on its head. So as I embarked on this last weight loss journey, I never really wanted to make it different. I wanted to be different. Why do I always stand in front of the mirror and think it's impossible to get rid of this giant mass of fat around my midsection and these big man boobs and these big flappy arms? Why is that impossible? I had always just kind of looked at, maybe I could just make it less bad, right? But never really understood, never really bought into the idea that I could completely flip it and get rid of it. And that all started in that year, 2011. And, to narrow it down to the one thing that made it, which is difficult, that made a difference is, I started it really out of vanity. I just was scared of how I was going to look in front of a classroom full of people, an auditorium full of people that were 10 years younger than me and 200 pounds lighter than me. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something about it. And so I started doing something about it. And my buddy Jeff called me in February of that year, and we just started going to the gym, and I didn't do anything. That's why I tell people when they ask me all the time, well, what do I do? Tell me what to do. I was like, no, just do something. Just step your damn foot forward and do something, because more than likely it's going to be wrong. And the more wrong steps you make are actually the better, because then if you really let results dictate your next step, you're going to go in the right direction. And so don't worry about, because that's what I did. I just started moving more and eating less, just like I had always done in my life. I didn't change my weight loss protocol from all of the other failed attempts until later on in the journey,
And so how did you find the plant-based world?
Through running. That's where this this whole idea of being a reader now and being a pragmatist and having an education and understanding how to learn, understanding how to research topics of importance to me. Well, I read about how low effort or medium effort cardiovascular, training could really keep you in that fat burning state, and that running was and I had read an article, just simply read an article that running was a great tool for that. And at that point in my life, I had lost 100 pounds. Yay for me, right? Lost 100 pounds. However, I still had over 100 pounds to lose. And that's a weird place to be, right? Like, because nobody's going to say, hey, Josh, good job on that 100 pounds, but what about that next 100 you got hanging around you? You know, nobody's ever going to say that. Everybody around you's all of their words and everything is going to make you feel really good about where you've gotten. And nobody really is going to do anything to help you see where you need to go. And so what running did for me was it provided like a place to go that really didn't involve weight per se. And what it was doing was I was wanting to become a runner. I had picked up running. I was at 100 pounds, still weight loss, but still had significant weight to lose, right? So I started running because of what I had read, and then because of my love for the city of New Orleans, me and my friend Jeff really decided to sign up for our first for Crescent City Classic, which is like an iconic 10K here in the city, right? So signed up for that as like a carrot on a stick, and just kind of worked my way towards it. I was up to running 4 miles pretty much nonstop before the morning of the Classic. The Classic is a 10K, 6.2 miles. And so I was like, well, even if I have to walk 2 miles, I'm good. You know, I'm happy. I'll just finish, right? And so doing that race, running that race with Jeff, really buying into running is what led me to ultimately reading Born to Run, because I was just pouring through stuff, like just reading like, hey, I know I'm a 300, because that was my thing. Oh, yeah, I might be slow, but how many other 320-pound guys ran the Classic today, you know? Well, I wasn't going to have that little caveat because I wanted to lose. I wanted to be healthier, a fitter, trimmer me, right? And so anyhow, ultimately running led me to read Born to Run. And when I read Born to Run, I learned about Scott Jurek. I learned about ultra marathons, and it blew me away. Like, I was completely like, holy crap, this is crazy. I didn't know people ran hundreds of miles. I didn't know people ran further than, because at that time, like a 26.2 miles was just like a pipe dream. I was just, you know, it wasn't even an aspiration at that point. It was just like, yeah, marathons. Yeah, they're a thing. They exist. I'm worried about trying to run a 10K right now. That is my marathon, right? But anyhow, read Born to Run, learned about Scott Jurek, and that was the very first not the first introduction to a plant-based way of eating. Because I mean, obviously everybody's heard of vegans, and everybody's has a funny story about a crazy vegan they've encountered over their lifetime probably. And I'm no different. You know, we would sit around and with our pulled pork nachos and cheeseburgers and make fun of the vegans who had just come in and were making a fuss with the waitress over, you know, asking a million questions about what's in the veggie burger and all of this stuff. And so me and my, you know, I was that guy. I was the big fat guy eating a cheeseburger, looking at the vegans, judging the hell out of them, going, y'all stupid, right? And so anyhow, that was my experience with veganism and being you know, eating a vegan diet. And so, but Scott Jurek really, that blew my mind, because I was like, wow, this dude's he's an animal. He's awesome at this thing that I'm starting to do, running. And so I drilled down further. I read his book. And then after I read his book, I read Finding Ultra, Rich Roll's book. And Rich Roll really sent it home for me, because I was like, he sounds a lot like me. He's a kind of a failed college athlete who turned to alcohol and drugs late after that career was over, and kind of got really big and fat. I went a little bit more overboard than he did on the big and fat part, but he turned it all around when he was 40. And I was like, shit, I'm not 40 yet. So he could do it at 40. I could do it right now. And it really resonated with me, his story. And then I keep going on. I read Brendan Brazier, and I'm still like I was on board with you know, going plant-based at that time. I had already made the switch and was doing veggie burgers and all of that. And I would still have like maybe some crumbled feta on a salad every now and then, but nothing real. I was
Nothing
really
fleshy.
I was mostly plant-based, and I just kept going and drilling down. I read the book. There's, you know, the book Skinny Bitch. So
Yes.
there's a couple's version, right? So the priest that married my wife and I, actually, we were in church for christening, and the priest told us, because he didn't know me. He knew me from the wedding, but he didn't know me that day because he didn't recognize me. And he asked my wife, "Where's your husband?" He asked her that in front of me. And she's like, "This is my husband." And he was like, "Oh my goodness." And so we struck up the conversation, and I had told him, I was like, "I'm eating plant-based now and blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Well, me too." And he said, "I read this book, Skinny Bitch." He said, there's a male version of, so a couple's like package where you could get Skinny Bitch and Skinny Bastard.
Skinny Bastard, yeah.
Yep. So I read Skinny Bastard. My wife's read Skinny Bitch, and I was like, wow. And there was a reading list at the end of that. And then so after reading that, I read Slaughterhouse, which I was just completely blown away by. And so and that's where my education kind of started. Like a self-education. Then I go on Netflix and start digging around and find Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, and For Knives and Food Matters, Hungry for Change. All of those normal, like the normal path. I hear that from so many other people. So, but it all started, kernel, that seed was me deciding to run more. And I was really using, if you want to call it that, I was really sort of exploiting running to get weight off of me. And it really wound up blossoming into something deeper. And I really fell in love with it for more than what it could bring me in weight loss.
So you basically went from a 400-pound man to a 200-pounder. You lost over 200 pounds.
You lost a man.
Yeah, you lost half your body, right? And you found running, and that was your vehicle to get yourself there along with the eating. But that was something that interested you. So I know you've inspired so many other people to find a better path for themselves already. And I know you've turned yourself into a motivation machine, because I spent time with you and we've talked before. And I remember chasing you in that 10K race, and you were yelling at me to bust my butt to get up there with you. And you've turned yourself into a serious beast. And
well, I'm flattered. I don't think I am, but okay.
You are, and you are. But what I wanted to ask though is, for that person who's sitting there listening right now, who knows they want to lose weight, and maybe it's not 200 pounds, maybe it's just 20, or maybe it's 50, and they're not into running, and they're afraid to run. And I know fear is something that stops a lot of people from getting to where they need to go. But what can you say to those people right now to get them going? Because you're a motivating guy, and we're going to have you back on the show to talk about way more things than just your story.
Sure.
There's way more to talk about. But what can you tell those people right now today?
What I would say is educate yourself on what we are as human beings. Forget about running, forget about exercise, forget about a plant-based diet, forget about those things for right now. Do yourself a favor and try to understand what it is as an organism, what our niche is on this planet, what it is. Seriously. It's not to be overweight and mashed to the ground with gravity. It's not to be driving through drive-thrus and getting Popeye's chicken or getting Big Macs or Whoppers, triple-decker Whoppers with a strawberry shake and a king-size fries, which is one of my favorite, right? It's not that. It's not that. Understand that we have a maker, whatever label you want to put on that maker. Understand that the universe has manifested us into physical form for some reason on this planet. Snakes slither around, kangaroos hop around, birds fly up in the sky, fish swim, right? And if you take that away from any of those organisms, they kind of go crazy. You don't believe me? Go look at a zoo. Go look at a zoo, look at an aquarium. Those animals are not happy. Those animals are not healthy. When we are human beings, we are running machines, my friend. That's what we do. We do bipedal locomotion. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, figure something out. Get in a chair, push yourself around in a wheelchair, do some push-ups, wiggle yourself around, do something to sweat in the effort to be able to walk and break free of the chains, so to speak. Like if you could imagine Forrest Gump when he shed his braces in the movie, so understand that a human is a runner. I don't care if you say that it's not your thing. You need to make it your thing. And that might be controversial. That might not be something that people want to hear. But there's no better way to do it. There's no better way to do it. There's no better thing to do physically for the human form. Exert yourself with bipedal locomotion. To walk or a run.
And I remember about a month and a half ago, I sent you a message. I hurt my leg. I was so upset I couldn't run because of an injury. And you know what you said to me? Suck it up, find something to do, get down and do push-ups, just do, and you'll be
we
fine.
Too cerebral, bro.
Yeah.
We think too damn much. We think too much. Go exert all the thinking out of yourself. Run past your ability to think. That's my thing. Run past it. Because just like in that 10K that day, I know the only thing that was holding you back was you was thinking too much. You was thinking too much about this isn't a sustainable pace for me. I know physically it was taxing on you. I get it. I believe you. I know that. But a big part of it was you're thinking too much and you're trying to pull the levers and be in control. And just let it fly. Let it go. Just let it go. That's the biggest lesson that I've learned in all of this is you're not going to die from exercise. You're not going to die from it. I mean, you know, I guess I should put a parenthetical disclaimer in there. But, you know, you're not going to die from running. You know, it's just unless you're extremely unhealthy, it's not going to be something that kills you. You need to go out and exert yourself in a way that really, really challenges your capacity.
Yeah.
Really. And that is something, because that's what we think around it too much. We'll go, well, you know, if I could just find that thing that I'm passionate about, like you're passionate about running, but if I could just find that thing, then I would be okay. No, I'm not saying you need to find what you're passionate about. I'm saying you need to get passionate about running. I hated running my whole life. I hated it. I could not stand running. Look up David Goggins. He'll tell you right now. If you don't know who David Goggins is, Google him. Look him up. He'll tell you right now he can't stand running. He's one of the baddest runners on the planet. He's run 100 miles in 18 hours. He's done Badwater. He's an animal.
He's crazy.
He's a crazy beast animal. He don't like running. That's not his thing, but he does it. And there's a reason that if somebody does it, that it creates a better human form. It's the universe telling you you're on the right path. You're abiding by her protocol. Plants as food, running as movement. Mash those together, and we got one hell of a human. And that's what I've discovered over my transformation. And it gets frustrating when people go, yeah, but I don't really, my thing is, you know what I like to do? Golf. I was like, okay, well, what?
Run to the golf course.
Right. You know, like my hunting friends, I have hunting buddies. Yeah, well, you know, my thing is hunting. Okay, yeah, I got you. Well, how about if you do this? How about if you leave the gun at home and you leave the four-wheeler at home and you go hunting that way? Go hunting with a Bowie knife in your mouth, or go hunting with a bow and arrow or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then what will happen by default is what you're going to have to do a whole lot of in that is bipedal locomotion. If you didn't have a golf cart and you wanted to go play golf, what's going to happen? You're going to have to do a whole lot of bipedal locomotion. You know, so nature stacks the deck. It tries to make us use bipedal locomotion all the time, accidentally. And we find all these hacks and workarounds to get around bipedal locomotion, so much so that we hate it. We hate bipedal locomotion. And my thing is not try to find what you're passionate about. Like I said earlier, find a way or do it on purpose. Get passionate about bipedal locomotion. Even if you go to the gym, you work out for an hour, because that's what I like. I like lifting. Okay. But then go hard on the treadmill for 30 minutes, or go hard on the elliptical for 30 minutes if you're scared it's too much pounding. Learn about how to run without beating yourself up. Learn about right footfalls. Learn about the right type of shoes you should be wearing. There's all of the different things, because that's another thing that we do, because we're so divorced from the idea of bipedal locomotion and running, is that all of the tools, quote unquote, that we use to do it are wrong. So we do, and the mechanisms are wrong. So we don't even know how anymore. So when we go and we try to do it with these erroneous methods, we hurt ourselves. We do too much heel striking. We got these shoes with the big globby cushion on the heel that really, it doesn't help us a whole lot. And our form is all wrong because and then our mindset's all wrong because we know we don't have to be running. Whereas when we were naked, wild humans on the plains of Africa, when you were running, it was for a reason. And you didn't go, you know what, I'm going to stop because I'm tired, because that meant probably you was going to become a saber-toothed tiger turd or something,
I think that we've got a lot of listeners to the point where they're like, yes, Josh is absolutely right. I need to get out and I need to start running tomorrow, or today, or what have you. But tomorrow's going to come, and the adrenaline that they're feeling from listening to this conversation is not going to be the same as what they felt. So how are we going to make sure that they put on their shoes and hit the pavement?
That's up to him. I'm sorry. I can do all I can do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have to look in the mirror and know that you're doing your part. And if you're not, I can't do it for you. Yeah. So I can be here and I can provide all the inspiration or whatever you want to call it, can provide an aspiration for you. But at the end of the day, man, I'll be here to support you and I'll be here to help you and I'll be here. But when it comes down to that part of it, that's on you. And that's the tricky part, right? That's the part. I don't have a key. I don't have a magic pouch of dust to sell you to make you get up in the morning and make you feel how you're feeling right now. Listening to me when you get up in the morning and you're all alone, I don't have a magic way to make you feel that way in the morning. All I can tell you is do it. You have to. You should. You can. There's a million different ways to couch how you should think about it, but you need to find the way that's going to fire you up the most. Maybe you need to re-listen to this podcast as you're tying your shoes in the morning when you're getting up. I don't know. Maybe you need to find some rap music that sets your soul on fire and makes you want to go punch somebody in the neck or something, and you go run instead. Maybe you need to listen to some Metallica. Maybe you need to, I don't know. Maybe you need to put on an audio book. Maybe you need to listen to Born to Run. Maybe you need to listen to some of Rich Roll's podcasts. He's got some podcasts that'll set your hair on fire to do positive things with your own life and become unleash and unlock the most authentic version of yourself. But the biggest thing is you got to love yourself enough to do it. You got to love yourself enough to do it in spite of all of the good reasons not to.
At the end of the day, it comes down to personal responsibility, and that's the bottom line.
Yes, sir. And that's where community comes into play, Adam. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm trying to be out and open. It's not that I have the answers for you. It's that I'm going to be part of a community in which you can create, unlock, and unleash that most authentic self. I love that phrase that Rich Roll is calling, because that's what you need. You need the environment in which that you can grow. You need the medium from which that you can grow. And currently, the default medium in our society is not conducive to that you growing.
Josh, I love the passion. It comes through so clearly for people that were listening the beginning of this episode. And you were talking about your story of transformation. Yeah, you were telling the story, but then when we got deeper into it, you could hear the passion towards the change and the proper moving forward front forward foot, And when we talked in Health Fest, when we did our roundtable podcast, the passion came out again. So there's so much more that we could hear from you. There's so much more we could talk about, and you've got a lot to share. So where can people contact you if they want to know more about you or get more questions to you?
Yeah, and look, I try to be very good about answering, being very responsive. I'm very frank in my responses. So hopefully that doesn't turn people off. But I look at Goggins as a role model in that arena, as far as, because people come to you with some softball questions about about stuff, and sometimes you just need to cut through the crap and get to the nugget of what's the problem. And sometimes people take offense to that. But other than that, I'm really good about getting back to people on Facebook. I'm very open to people Facebook messaging me. I've even, if our stories are close enough together, as far as and I feel really strongly about what you're laying out to me and how passionate you are with your change. I'll even share with you my personal cell phone so we can stay in contact that way. I have a bunch of people that I do that with daily, honestly. So find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. Find me there, like my page, and I have a very unique last name, so it's easy to find me across all those social mediums. So Instagram, I'm very active on, and I'm on Snap Snapchat and all that stuff, but it's just my name. Obviously my blog, I have my name, joshlajaunie.com. And so it's usually mostly just race reports here lately. But every now and then I'll write about something that interests me and, sparks a little passion.
And you have a video right now where you made a breakfast and then you put sriracha, mustard, vinegar, and nooch, and enough nooch to feed a small army.
Yes,
on there, and that was good to you.
It's delicious to me. I mean, and that's why I scare people. That's why when people go, dude, give me a recipe, and I'm like, you don't want what I eat. You don't, because, and it's not like I didn't go from cheeseburgers to my kale salads with sriracha, mustard, and nooch on it, with a mashed up potato inside. There was a transition, and that transition part is almost like it's micro to the individual human's needs, and that's your part. That's your part. I think the big thing is, for nutritionally speaking, the one thing I can offer you is please be real about the animal products you're eating. Please be real about the health of it. Be real about what you're doing to your environment, and be real about, just from a spiritual health standpoint, what you're doing by eating so many animals and being a part of that. So that's what I can offer you nutritionally. When it comes down to the micro of, hey, Josh, what are your meals looking like today? My meals might turn you off, and that's the last thing I want to do is to turn you off. Just because I don't eat a tofu scramble and some sort of a biscuit for breakfast doesn't mean, or vegan waffles with syrup and stuff on it, doesn't mean that's not where you should be right now. Because if you're transitioning off of the traditional bacon and eggs, it's a great step, but there's a continuum. There's a good, better, best continuum when you go from, hey, maybe I should do less animals, and then, hey, maybe I should get rid of all animals, and then, hey, maybe I should do less vegan concoctions that simulate animal foods, and then, hey, maybe I should do no vegan concoctions that simulate animal foods, and so there's this continuum, and I just happen to be a little bit further along food-wise than someone who's still, eating steak and eggs for breakfast.
And that's totally cool, because everybody's at a different place and they're going to do the next step for themselves. And that's really the bottom line in all this. We're building a community to try to help people where they're at right now. Yeah. Right. So we're helping them see the light at the end of the tunnel, and everybody has to go through their own process. And
that being said, don't give up the fight of continuous progress, because I see so many people get to the point and they do this to me, and it's one of my pet peeves, and it irritates me so bad. They'll do this to me. They'll go, oh, okay, well, yeah, man, I gave up all the animal products. I did all your stuff, bro. And then, but man, you talk about, I put on some weight, I'm not losing weight anymore, or whatever the case is. And it's like, because you're using transition foods as a lifestyle now. And that's not, you could eat Oreos, you could eat peanut butter sandwich between Oreos every day and avoid eating animal products and be missing the big picture point here.
And that's what we do with our clients. We set them up for success for where they are now. We let them be a little bit, and when they're ready to move on to the next point and they're ready to reflect, they come back and we fix them up from there. And I mean, this is getting into a whole other podcast topic right now, and we'd love to talk about it more, but we are going to respect your time, and thank you so much for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today. I love that you're in the outdoors. We have those birds squawking, and it's a really refreshing and nice to hear what's going on around you outdoors right now.
Cool. Yeah, uptown New Orleans is a beautiful place.
Thanks so much, Josh, for joining us tonight, and we'll talk again soon. We'll have you back on the show.
All right. Appreciate it so much, man. Thanks for the interest, buddy.
We hope you enjoyed this show. Josh continues to do amazing things. He's so inspirational. His running keeps getting stronger. He inspires so many people to get out there, and hopefully this episode inspired you to go in that direction as well.
Don't forget to join us next Friday for episode 208 with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, one of the forefathers of plant-based nutrition, and that guy from Forks Over Knives, as my parents put it.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day.